Welcome to Nick's Mix and Flicks, the show where we talk music and movie reviews and other stuff too. Hey, have you ever thought, I wish there was a podcast that did entire album and full movie reviews all in one episode? Well, I have good news for you. You found that podcast. Like I said, this is a show where we talk music and movie reviews. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. We have a good episode ahead of us. Let's get into it. Oh yeah. Yeah, when I hear music, got to talk about it. Got me a collection of movies that I can watch a lot of. If that's not your suit, at least try it on for a fit. You gotta tune into this Nick's Mix and Flicks. Today's album we are reviewing is Thriller by Michael Jackson. Music time! The cover art for this album was photographed by a Dick Zimmerman, LOL. Alternate pictures of this photo shoot feature a tiger on Michael's knee, which he reportedly kept away from his face because he did not want to get scratched, which is a very sane and reasonable thing to do. But this album released on November 29th, 1982. Thriller is one of the most iconic albums of all time and is literally the best-selling album of all time. Total, it sold somewhere around 70 million copies worldwide, and it's easy to see why. Just looking at the track list before the full listen through, I already have 3 songs from this album with a green checkmark next to them on Spotify, which on Spotify means that they are in my liked songs playlist already. So 3 of these songs were already in like a semi-regular rotation in my music. But all the other songs, are you freaking kidding me? This is basically like Michael Jackson Greatest Hits Volume 1. The fact that this is the first time I'm listening to this album all the way through, and there are only 2 songs I don't recognize is crazy. But the other 7 songs have entered my ear holes time and time again, creating one of the catchiest albums to ever be created. Let's get into the track list. We're going to get into the first track, Wanna Be Startin' Something. With massive popularity and major success, Michael also carried the weight of it with him, and other things like the paparazzi and people looking to benefit and profit off of his personal life just in general. In reference to instigating a fight or like spreading rumors or something, Wanna Be Startin' Something is a direct way to hit things off. Imagine with me, if you will, for a second, that you are Michael Jackson, okay? Pretend you talk like this all the time. Okay, Quincy? Imagine you're Michael Jackson. You've been in the public eye for most of your life, and you just had a tremendously successful debut solo album. People are going to be on you, dude. You're gonna have people all over you, man. They're gonna want to know what's going on. Michael also references Billie Jean in this song, saying she's always talking when no one else is talking and telling lies, basically. Michael also repeatedly says, "You're a vegetable," and quote, "they eat off of you." That's definitely my favorite part of the song, is Michael Jackson calling me a vegetable for like almost a minute straight. I've always been like, what kind of vegetable would I be? Probably cauliflower, because I'm white and poofy. You know, cauliflower's not bad. Put some buffalo sauce on it. But I always sang that vegetable lyric because I thought I was being like so funny, and I was like, you're a vegetable, and then I realized that those are the actual words. But I think it's more in reference to how, you know, people eat off of you, they feed off of like your personal life. Again, how the media, the paparazzi, they'll kind of eat off of you and feed off of you. Hopefully you guys have either already heard this album or will listen to it after this episode. I do recommend you guys listen to it again after this episode to maybe catch things that you didn't before. But if you do, I want you to pay attention to the way this guy says ooh, or he's like, ooh, that's like Steve. That was more Steve from Minecraft. Ooh. But he's like, ooh, I can't do it good, but he does it a lot. And every time he does it, he sounds like Super Mario taking damage. Ooh. Listen to it. You're going to hear it. You're not going to be able to unhear it. So I apologize in advance. For this song, though, it's catchy. It's got a good rhythm. It's a little bit repetitive and a tad too long. Before I tell you guys the number ranking, I want to introduce a new ranking that we will have strictly just for this episode and maybe future episodes if we review Michael Jackson again. Our new rating system is hee-hees. So for example, this song gets 7.5 hee-hees out of 10. which will lead us greatly into our next track, Baby Be Mine. This was one of the two tracks I was not that familiar with. You got the funky groove right off the bat though, with the killer bass line that makes me want to put on my dancing shoes. I want to dip, 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 dip. I don't know if that's how the bass line goes, but that's me dancing. I don't remember hearing this song before, like the full listen through, and I'm not sure why. Obviously, the other songs on this album get played a lot because they're popular and people like them, right? But listening to this song, I'm like, why isn't this song one of the more popular ones? I don't understand. My goodness, is this song a groover? The lyrics read like a love song from the 80s, very simple, very, let's get together and find out what this whole love thing is about. We're just two crazy kids in love out on the town, We got the world in our hands, Billie Jean. What are we gonna do with it, Billie Jean? I don't need every song to have deep meaning or like a ton of references within the lyrics to enjoy it, and the track like this is like the perfect example. If the music is good, the lyrics can kind of float by without too much attention. Obviously, when you hit both categories of good lyrics and good music, you get like the Goldilocks level, which, by the way, Goldilocks is a new slang word I'm trying to make happen. It's like, it means like just right. Anyway, but obviously when you get a song that hits the mark lyrically and musically, it excels greatly. But this track just barely misses the mark for me lyrically to be something great. So we will give this song 8 hee-hees out of 10. It's time we talk about The Girl Is Mine with Paul McCartney. This is directly from my notes. I really, 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 really like this collection of sounds that we call a song. This song makes me think of three people. First, I think of my parents. They're the first two, as they were the ones to show me this song all those years ago. I remember being like in their living room at their house. We were all playing a bunch of songs on the TV because that's kind of what we used to do. And they started playing music from like their childhoods, and this song came up. And I remember thinking, MJ and PM have a song together. And then I remember adding it to my playlist right after that. But that then led me to show the song to my then girlfriend, now wife, Sydney, who had never heard the song at that point, despite her claiming to be a quote huge Michael Jackson fan. And we listened to it in my car while we were waiting for a table at Baby Stack's breakfast and lunch cafe. So long story short, this song makes my brain very happy, and for good reason. The blend of their voices melding is such an underappreciated pairing, and this song should be more popular in my opinion. It's the perfect length with a soothing sound, and it gets better the more it goes on. One of my top MJ songs ever. This song gets 9 hee-hees out of 10. Oh yeah. Alright, up next, Thriller. Here we go. How to rate and criticize one of the most recognizable songs ever written. What I will do is I'll start with the music video. One is like a short horror film, or thriller, if you will. But it's almost 14 minutes long. The first 4 minutes were meant to believe that Michael turns into this like werewolf cat creature thing, but it's revealed that that Michael is in a movie that the real Michael is watching at a movie theater. It's like Inception. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, so Michael and his girl are like watching this at the theater. And so throughout the video, Michael and his boo thing kind of stroll through town as Mikey Boy turns into a zombie and dances with the gang of other zombies that they come across. Hey zombies, break a leg. Dance till you're dead. The girl gets scared and cornered into a room by Mikey J and the zombie crew, and it's revealed that Michael is just normal. Psych! Earlier in the video, Michael says to the girl, "Come on, I'm not like other guys. I'm really not." And we see that Michael really isn't like other guys because he wears cheap yellow contacts in his eyes sometimes. AKA, he actually does turn into like the werewolf cat thing that we saw at the beginning. So I guess that's something, I don't know, or left on a cliffhanger. I'm pretty sure the song is like just supposed to be a spooky song accompanied by a scary music video and some darn thrilling narration and laughter on the track from actor Vincent Price. I don't know. This dude's creepy laugh unsettles me more than anything in the music video. There are like some people with weird and goofy laughs, but not Vincent Price. He is not one of them. I feel like he has a laugh that would make me never want to tell a joke around him ever again because his chuckle would keep me up at night. I kind of have a conspiracy theory with this song. I think Michael Jackson invented Halloween, like the holiday, in order to give Thriller a reason to pop up every year forever. And I think that's a genius move. Outside of the horror spooky stuff, I don't believe there to be much meaning, or is there? what do we got cooking? Tinfoil hat time. Indulge me if you will, please. So the song follows a young woman, right? Who was on a date, presumably with someone she's previously been on a date with, aka Michael. We see that Michael is kind of weird towards her, and he likes to scare her. Like, rah, rah. She's like, ah, I'm scared. That's her. So maybe the evil lurking in the dark, as the lyrics clue to, is the trashy men that think women are something to play with. Ladies, be careful out there, because you never know which person you date will occasionally wear plastic lenses over their eyes to make them look like a cat. The song executes exactly what it's here to do. Folks, this song receives 9 hee-hees out of 10. We're going to move into another iconic track titled Beat It. When I review these songs, I pretty extensively read through the lyrics 2 or 3 times for every song, so I can kind of gauge what is being talked about and what I think the song is about. And for me, I feel like this song reads like advice from an older Michael to a younger Michael Jackson. In the time that he came up in, Michael was faced with tons of scrutiny and hate, not only because he was a black man making it big, but because people also didn't see him as like a traditional male celebrity figure, you know, like macho and tough. He had a higher pitched voice. He had a smaller figure. So people, I think, looked at him like he's not a real man. And I'm sure that people said way worse stuff about him. I'm not going to repeat those things. Clearly, that's insane to think about someone in that way. But that was the reality, you know? So Michael tells younger Michael, like, hey, you don't want to see no blood. Don't be a macho man. You want to be tough? You better do what you can. Don't feel like you have to fit into these traditional male stereotypes, but be prepared not everyone will like it. On top of that, you know, it's also a common tale within the music and entertainment industry that the labels and execs like to take advantage of their artists and these celebrities. The lines that make me think of this are as follows, quote, they're out to get you, better leave while you can. You have to show them that you're really not scared. They'll kick you and they'll beat you and they'll tell you it's fair. I think Mike here is telling young Mike that these people are out to get him and profit off of him, but you have to show them that you're really not scared. You know, when he says, like, you better leave while you can, maybe it's like, you better leave that record deal while you can. I don't know, just a thought. Maybe Michael was having issues with his label at the time, and that's what inspired the song, at least maybe partially. These people will also kick you and beat you and tell you that they have control, that this is how the, quote, real world works. Don't listen to them, baby Michael. They're just a bunch of goober heads. But if none of that analysis is true, alternatively, I think this song is just about bullies in general and sticking it to them. This song also features a ripping guitar solo towards the end that makes me want to simultaneously cry and boogie around like a maniac. This track will also get 9 hee-hees out of 10. Billie Jean is our next track. I feel like I remember getting the gist of this song from like a pretty young age, likely too young to like fully understand it, but I knew that it was about this woman named Billie Jean who was up to no good. In the music video, Michael is shown being followed by a man in a trench coat with a camera and sunglasses, I think meant to serve as a pretty literal representation of paparazzi, aka Fatherazzi, and their shady invasive practices and occupation. In this track, the titular character Billie Jean is accusing Mr. King of Pop, Michael Jackson, for being the father of her illegitimate child. This type of rumor, of course, would send the media into a frenzy, and it does just that. Though Billie Jean herself was a fictional character, Michael and his brothers did face rumors and paternity accusations like this during their lives in stardom, so I think that Billie Jean is like the culmination of all those people. And if you remember, this is not the first time we're hearing of this Billie Jean, because back in the track, the very first track, Wanna Be Starting Something, Michael shares how Billie Jean is always lying. And another thing that he says is that they call her mouth a motor. He's like, and they call her mouth a motor. I feel like that was pretty good. Another thought I had was, I think that the lyrics, who dance on the floor and around, are like metaphorically referencing lovemaking. Maybe that's like super obvious and has always been the point of the song, but definitely used to think that Michael literally meant dancing, but I feel like the lovemaking thing makes a little bit more sense. I feel like every time I hear this song, it makes me do like the West Side Story, like Rocket Snap and Step, like side by side, and as I try to emulate Michael Jackson's dance moves. It's an epic track with a catchy chorus that had child me singing about not being the father of an illegitimate child far too young. This song also served as an excuse to dance like Michael Jackson at a young age. If you watch him performing this song, Billie Jean, his infamous crotch grab dance move comes up a lot. Anytime as a kid that my hand would like make my way down to the crotch region and my mom would catch me, I would have like, no, mom, look, I'm dancing like Michael Jackson, and then proceed to do like a perfectly executed moonwalk straight into a crotch grab and then like kick to the side like. And I've always been able to move like that. This track gets 8 crotch grabs out of 10. It's not my favorite or most enticing song on this album, in my opinion, hence the rating. Which is going to bring us to Human Nature. I like this song. It's got like a dreamy, atmospheric track that at its core is about connection and human psychology. Michael sings about the city he's in and how the night air attracts him and draws him to leave the 4 walls of his confinement, if it's a house, an apartment, a penthouse, whatever. Throughout the track, Michael sings about the city as if it's a woman or a human that he is seemingly infatuated with lyrics like "The city winks a sleepless eye" and "Electric eyes are everywhere," and "The city's heart begins to beat." We can see this idea kind of in action. Specifically, the lyric "electric eyes," I believe, could have a few different meanings. Someone online stated that the electric eyes could be another reference to paparazzi, Father Razzi, and how he can like never escape the electric eyes of the cameras, right? Another idea could be that the streetlights are like the electric eyes, watching and showcasing everything that goes on during the nighttime in the big city. Not only further creating like the city imagery, but also continuing to personify the city itself as the lights being the eyes for the city. But it also could be that Michael is sharing an electric gaze with whatever girl Michael is singing about in the second verse. I do think the last option aligns the most with like the theme of human nature. We as a species, we crave love and passion, which can often feel electric or seducing. And it's human nature to grow, to learn, and to love. So our body is going to want to feel that stuff. I won't really touch much on the chorus other than it being the perfect response to the last line in every verse. And the other half of the chorus when he's like, why does he do it that way? And he's like, I like living this way. I think this song is expertly created, vocally flawless, and one of the songs of all time. It's not too long or too short, just Goldilocks length. This song gets 10 hee-hees out of 10 for me. Alright, we got 2 tracks left. Our second to last track is going to be PYT, in parentheses, Pretty Young Thing. That's what PYT stands for, just FYI. FYI stands for your information, BTW. And BTW stands for by the way. Just thought you should know all that. I mean, what to say? The song is pretty straightforward. It's a fun love song that requires some listener participation later on. When Michael sings, "Pretty young things, repeat after me," I better hear you go, "Na, na, 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 na." You better repeat after him. I will hunt you down if you don't. I don't care who you are, what you look like, where you're from, why you're listening to this track, and if you don't like it or not. Even if you are mute, I better at least see those shoulders moving around or something. Okay, sorry. Got a little caught up in the moment. It's just a fun song. Lyrically, Michael is just having fun with it. When I do these music reviews, I have to remember that music that's made to just be music can still be good and substantial. And what I mean when I say that is music that's made to be fun is still good music in its own category, right? This is one of those songs for sure. I feel like people lose sight of that sometimes, especially when like rating stuff. We can all have our preferences and theories, and that's why there's so much music out there to enjoy. Quite literally something for everybody. So if this song isn't your thing, I totally get it. Except I don't. How could you not sing along to this? Are you insane? How could you? This track gets 8 hee-hees out of 10. No, we're over. It's over already with the music. We're on our last track here, titled "The Lady in My Life." And this is arguably the most sentimental and personal song off the album. It sounds like it belongs on a playlist titled Baby Making because holy cow, dude. It's getting hot in here. I feel like it's getting hot in here. Oh no, where did my pants go? Casually and intently listening to this song to write notes down feels pretty shocking. It's like getting like sexy whiplash, and now I'm stuck wearing a lacy neck brace for 3 weeks. Thanks a lot, Michael. Sonically, this is a satisfying way to close this album out, just with a bunch of different sounds. And with this song, this album closes on a major sexy note. Listen, all my music theory heads will realize that that's a pun. One of the chords in this song is A major 7, which is what this song gets. A major 7 he's out of 10. Close things up with the album. I feel like for the most part listening to these songs felt like an experience I've had time and time again. While yes, a couple tracks popped up that made themselves known that I likely wouldn't have heard otherwise, I was very familiar with about 80% of these songs, which leads me to why I feel like this album is such a success. To me, these songs feel like they've always existed, like these songs have always been an option at any point in time to listen to. Now, this album was released in 1982, and I might age some of you, and I'm also going to age myself here. I was born in 2001. So in a way, these songs have always existed for me, but I'd be curious to know if you were born before this album came out, if you remember listening to it for the first time, listening to Michael Jackson for the first time. Let me know what it was like in the comments. I'm genuinely curious and I want to know. That's going to close it out for the album. The final ranking we have for Thriller by Michael Jackson, the most successful best-selling album of all time, we got an 8.5. Before we get into the movie review too much, I do want to issue a little bit of a content warning. Viewer discretion is advised. This movie tackles heavy subjects such as depression, suicide, and substance abuse. If that is something you're sensitive to, maybe skip out on this one, and we'll see you next time. Just wanted to let you guys know before we get into it. This movie is very sad. This is not a fun movie whatsoever. It's fun if you like wrestling and enjoy the stories of the Von Erich family, but other than that, this is quite the tragic story. I promise you I'm not going to do it justice. Go watch this movie if you've not seen it. It is one of the most emotional movies I have ever seen, and I'm excited to talk about it, but it's not going to be fun. In fact, it's going to be quite the contrast between the album that we reviewed and then this movie, but let's get into it.
Movie time!
The Iron Claw, directed and written by Sean Durkin, was released on December 22nd, 2023. It's a Christmas movie, but it's not. This film had an estimated budget of about $15 million, which is chump change, you know. I got that in a freaking coin jar in my closet, dude. But it grossed globally just over $45 million, which, okay, fine. I don't have 45 mil in a coin jar in my closet. I'm sorry. Okay, fine. I don't have that much. And maybe the 15 mil in the coin jar was also a lie. Take about 6 zeros off of that. That's probably about how much I actually do have. Needless to say, this movie made a lot of money, and rightfully so. It's a great film. The film received 0 Oscar nominations, however, despite critical and audience acclaim. This is, in my opinion, one of the biggest snubs in the Oscars in the last few years. This movie was directed and written to a T. The performances given by the actors and the actresses are amazing. Not every single performance is top tier, but for the most part, the main cast knocks it out of the park here. I do think this movie would have received more nominations and probably even some wins had it been released earlier in the year, since it was released in December and the Oscars usually take place at the beginning of March. I guess 2 months isn't really enough time for a movie to catch enough traction to be able to get a bunch of nominations or receive any wins. But nonetheless, it's a great movie. I think that it should have at least been nominated for some of the performances. It probably would have been up for Best Picture, but I do think at least the performances were pretty good. So the movie follows the Von Erich family. Let's get into the cast of said family. First off, likely the biggest name in the cast, probably, in my opinion. We have Zac Efron as Kevin Von Erich. He was in High School Musical. He was in the movie 17 again. He was in the hearts of many young girls in the early 2000s to 2010s with the High School Musical franchise. Harrison Dickinson plays David Von Erich. I don't think I had ever seen any other movies that he was in, to be honest. So I'm pretty sure this is the movie that introduced me to him. I'm glad it was, because he does a really good job. He does a really, really, really good job. He does a really good job. Yeah. We have Jeremy Allen White as Kerry Von Erich. You may know him from his role in the series The Bear. My wife and I, we watched a little bit of that. That was one of the shows that when we first started dating, we were like, yeah, we're going to watch this. And then there were like 5 other shows that we were like, yeah, we're going to watch this too. So The Bear has been unfinished by my wife and I. We will, I think, at some point. But right now it's on hold. We have Stanley Simmons as Mike Von Erich, which in the movie is the youngest son. And Romeo Newcomer as Jack Jr., which is a pretty ironic name because if this is his acting debut, that is such an iconic last name. That's so sick. But he plays Jack Jr., actually the oldest Von Erich son. And there was actually another Von Erich son that wasn't in the movie, was not included in the story, but his name was Chris Von Erich, and he was actually the youngest. We then have Holt McElhaney as Fritz Von Erich, the father of said Von Erich's sons. He was a professional wrestler himself, and he kind of pushed his sons to follow in his footsteps career-wise, and to have them all bring home the world championship belt, whatever it's called. We have Maura Tierney, I believe is how you say her last name, as Doris Adkisson. Fritz Von Erich's actual name is Jack Adkisson, but he changed his name to Fritz Von Erich as his wrestling stage name. All the boys' last names are Von Erich. And then we have Lily James as Pam, which is Kevin Von Erich's girlfriend and wife. That's the Von Erich family in the movie. I will kind of give a brief overview of the plot, and then we'll get into spoiler territory, but I want to share some of my initial thoughts first with you guys. I've now seen this movie twice, and both times have been such a heavy watch and experience. Both different experiences, but both still emotionally very heavy. I first watched this movie with my wife, Sydney, and I cried a lot when I first watched this movie. It is so sad. The story of the Von Erich family is absolutely heartbreaking, and that's putting it lightly. I was doing some research on the family, and I saw a comment on a video that was kind of giving like, you know, the history of the Von Erichs, and this comment said, my girlfriend asked me if the actual story is as sad as the movie, and the commenter said that he told his girlfriend that the actual story is way sadder than the movie, which is a very accurate description. I love movies like this because they make me feel emotions and feelings that I don't feel on a regular basis. Feeling just that tragedy, that heartbreak for this family. It is not factual. It's not 100% historically accurate. This is a Hollywood movie. Though, as far as I can tell with my research, it is fairly accurate, but again, not every single thing is. The movie kept me invested the entirety of the runtime, both times that I watched it, which I believe is a strong reason why this film works so well. I'm going to give you guys a brief overview of the plot. So the movie starts with Fritz Von Erich in a wrestling match. Following the match, we see him outside. He meets his wife and his 2 sons, Kevin and David. They are still very young. And we watch as the boys grow to follow their father's footsteps in his professional wrestling career. Kevin, the second oldest of the boys technically, is seen as the role model for the rest of the brothers. Throughout the movie, Fritz will tell the boys who his favorite is, and he'll go down the list to his least favorite, which is just A+ parenting. That's awesome. I think you should definitely do that if you're a parent. For sure do that, 100%. As the movie goes along, we see how this mindset of Fritz and of Doris, the advice that they give to the boys time and time again to talk amongst themselves. You know, at some point Doris says, that's why you have brothers. Talk about your issues with your brothers. We're not here for that. I know in my experience, my parents have been someone that I've talked to time and time again about issues and things going on in my life that I don't know who else I would have talked to about. Yeah, I have a brother and a sister. There are things to talk to all kinds of different people about though. So for your parents to say, that's why you have siblings. Don't bring these issues to us. We're not here to solve them for you. You solve them yourselves. So that's great. That's pretty awesome. I love that. Yay. But we watch as the other sons, David, Kerry, and Mike, struggle to follow in the footsteps to live up to these grand expectations that Fritz sets for them as professional wrestlers. As far as the brothers go, there are 5 of them in the movie, but there actually was another brother, but his characteristics and his reasons for his eventual death and suicide are apparent in the movie and actually kind of spread amongst the 4 brothers that we see go into the ring in the film. Now, yes, there are 6 There are 5 in the movie, and there are 4 that go into the ring. The oldest, Jack Jr., died when he was 7 years old. He actually drowned as a child, which that shows the kind of heartbreak that Fritz and Doris had to endure with their first child dying at 7 years old. We watch the brothers throughout their lives as they try to fill this role, as they try to make their father proud, to make their mother proud, and to make each other proud as well. As the film goes on, we see the very obvious heavy and physical, emotional toll that this takes on the entire family. We're going to get into the spoiler section. From here on out, we're going to be talking about heavy plot points, character arcs in the movie. So if you haven't watched the movie yet, go watch it, come back and listen to the rest of the review. After a wrestling match where Kevin and David share the ring, we're introduced to Pam, who will eventually become Kevin's wife, and Pam asks Kevin out on a date. So they go get food, they go get a drink. Pam is trying to get as much information out of Kevin as she can because he's very awkward, he's not very socially in tune. He gets talking once they get going, but right off the bat, she has to kind of be like, so you're going to ask me what my name is? So on their date, we learn that Kevin is actually the second oldest, and the boys have an oldest brother by the name of Jack Jr., who tragically he was electrocuted and drowned at the age of 7. Pam offers her condolences, but Kevin shares that he kind of doesn't really think about it, and he doesn't get emotional. He just says it as fact, which we will see Kevin over time break down as each of his brother's passings happen around him. We're then introduced to Kerry Von Erich, which at the time that we're introduced to him is an Olympian. He is a discus thrower. We see him at one of his practices warming up and stretching when the Olympians are informed that the U.S. will not be participating in the Olympics that year. Kerry comes home and Fritz eventually tells/invites Kerry that he's going to be joining Kevin and David in the ring as a 3-man tag group of professional wrestlers. We see them in the ring together as they fight together and enjoy success and wins. I've yet to mention Mike Von Erich, the youngest in the movie, who is actually the second youngest of the Von Erich sons. Mike doesn't have any interest really in wrestling. He can eat, that's for sure. He makes it a point to say that he can eat the most out of every boy, which in the movie seems to be the case. But Fritz is on him about being better, about growing some muscle. He's constantly on him. Kevin even goes to their mother, Doris, and says, hey, Dad's too hard on Mike. He needs to, take a step back. And Doris tells Kevin, that's why you guys are there. You talk it out. You discuss it. That's between you boys. So we learn Mike at this point has an interest in cameras, eating, and music. So I definitely relate the heaviest to Mike Von Erich because that's like my entire personality is camera, music, and eating. Right away. So after we see Kevin, David, and Kerry in the ring together, Fritz decides that David will be the future of the Von Erich family, and he will go on tour to fight for a championship, which will take him to places like Japan. So David leaves, he comes back, and we see Kevin and Pam get married. So at their wedding, they're dancing. Kevin takes a break to go into the bathroom, and he hears someone throwing up in the bathroom. So he opens the stall to see David puking, and David moves, and we see that inside of the toilet that he is puking in is a bunch of blood. David downplays the whole thing. He's like, it's a bug I caught on the road. Like, I'm fine. Kevin's telling him, like, you need to go to a doctor. Like, that's not normal, dude, to puke blood. That's not good. And David's like, listen, I'll be good. Kevin tells David, hey, turns out this is a shotgun wedding, and David is like, I'm gonna be an uncle. And Kevin's like, yeah, don't tell anyone, all right? It's so sweet. And it makes the next few minutes in the movie so sad because Kevin and David have kind of cleaned up in the bathroom to come out to dance with everybody again. So we see all the brothers dancing with Pam, and the camera ends on the shot of David. As it fades out, we see Kevin driving back to the home of Fritz and Doris. As Kevin pulls into the home of Fritz and Doris, he goes inside to see Fritz at the table with his head down, and he's asking him what's wrong. And Fritz reveals that on the road in Japan, David was found in his hotel room dead. So it's not a fun counter to keep, but if you are keeping track, that is now 2 Von Erich sons that have passed away. So in the midst of David's passing, Fritz makes the decision to replace David in his championship fight, and he can't decide between Kerry and Kevin. Kevin is the oldest, but Kerry has been catching the most heat lately. So he flips a coin, and Kerry is the one that goes on to fight the fight that David was going to. and he ends up winning. Kerry returns home with the belt, and he's reflecting on it. He shares a few words with Kevin. Kerry decides to go out on a ride on his bike. So we see Kerry riding with no emotion on his face. He's just riding in the night, and it cuts to black. And so then we see Kerry wake up, kind of do his morning routine. He gets out of bed, but he's got crutches that he's holding on to. And so we see him walk into the kitchen with the crutches, and from about mid-calf down on his right leg, I believe, Kerry's foot is missing because he got into an accident on his bike while riding. So Kerry, determined to take this new challenge as a welcome challenge, struggles to train to get back into the ring with Kevin. So I forgot to mention, Mike at this point has now entered the ring, and in one of his fights seriously injures his shoulder, which leads to the need for shoulder surgery. During the surgery, he experiences toxic shock syndrome, which is not as cool as it sounds, I promise. Basically, during the surgery, Mike's body temperature was up at 107 for, I think they say 2 hours. The doctor says it's rare, but it does happen. So Mike is no longer physically and mentally at the point where he could seriously go into the ring. And he knows this, and he's scared that he can't replace David. He shares a moment with his mom where he says that everyone wants him to replace David, but he knows that he can't. So as Kevin and Kerry are out training one night, we struggle to watch Mike, who has now decided to take his own life due to not being able to fulfill the role that David left him, and just feeling unable to live up to the expectations of his father in general. So again, not a fun counter, but that is now 3 Von Erich sons that are passed, with Mike being the first death from suicide. With each death of his brothers, Kevin is getting closer and closer to just absolutely losing it. In the movie, there's a plot point where the family has a quote-unquote curse, the Von Erich curse, which started with the younger, oldest brother, Jack Jr. So Kevin, in the movie, shows that he thinks that his family is cursed. I think he plays it off as a joke at first, but he, I believe, genuinely kind of believes it to some extent. Him and Pam have a child now, and so we kind of see him neglect his responsibilities as a husband, as a father, in fear that his children and his wife will be punished because of this curse of the family name Von Erich. And so he, stays away from his wife and his kid. And with each death of his brothers, it becomes more and more difficult for him to justify going back home because he's scared that he will bring it to his family. But we do eventually see the return of Kevin to Pam and his son. At that point in the movie, Kevin receives a phone call from Kerry in the middle of the night, and Kerry is not in a good spot. He's saying he doesn't want to be here anymore. And so Kevin tries to convince Kerry to meet him. He tries to tell Kerry, come stay with us, please. And the phone call ends with Kevin not really sure what Kerry is about to do, or if he's about to do anything. So Kevin calls his father, Fritz, and explains the situation and says, look out for Kerry, he might be coming. And Fritz basically says, you work this out between yourselves. Kevin drives over to Fritz and Doris's property, where we see Kerry's car kind of off to the side of the road with the driver door open. No one inside the vehicle. Kevin is making his way towards the inside of the house, and right before he steps in, we hear a gunshot from the front yard. Kevin then tragically walks over to see his brother dead on the ground with a gunshot wound to his heart. I apologize, I am getting a little teary-eyed at the moment. I have an older brother and I have an older sister as well, and just the thought of losing a sibling in general is horrible, but especially in that manner is just tragic to no end. So Kevin is crying out. Fritz then makes his way over to Kevin and Mike, and Kevin lashes out on Fritz. He throws him to the ground, he's choking him, and he's saying, this is your fault. You should have looked out for him. Why didn't you look out for him? And Fritz basically flips that on to Kevin and says, you were the one that he called. This is on you. You should have done something. Kevin then retrieves his brother's body to take it inside to lay it on the dining room table. If you're keeping count, that is 4 of the Von Erich boys that have now passed, 2 now due to suicide. In the movie, that is the extent of the deaths of the Von Erichs that we see. However, there was actually a 6th Von Erich son named Chris, who, unlike his brothers, was a little small statured. Chris did try his way into the ring, but eventually he also ended up committing suicide at the age of 21. That is 5 of the Von Erich sons that have passed. Kevin still is alive today. Him and his wife Pam have, I believe, 4 children, and at the time of the movie, I believe it said 13 grandchildren at the end. the second longest surviving of the Von Erich family was actually Doris. She passed away in 2015. This is one of the saddest movies I think I have ever seen. There's a channel on YouTube called Making Media Matter. She has a video on the Iron Claw and why it is such an emotional gut punch of a movie. She says how throughout the movie we see Kevin react to the deaths of his brothers, and each time we get closer to seeing him finally break down, but every time the camera's on him, he steps out of frame or it switches to a different shot right before we see Kevin break down. And so the last scene of the movie is down the road a few years in the future with Kevin and Pam and their now 2 sons playing in the yard playing football, with Kevin sitting in the grass, and we finally see Kevin fully break down. It's a very hard thing to watch, knowing what he's been through. To think that someone had to witness his brothers all die, that is such a horrible thing to have to go through. So it is expected that this type of breakdown happens, especially considering that during the movie, the boys are pretty much told to hide their emotions no matter what. And so Kevin's sons notice that he's not well, so they come over to him and they're asking him what's wrong, and Kevin is apologizing because he feels the boys shouldn't see him like that men don't cry, that the boys shouldn't see their father cry. And the boys say, well, everyone cries, we cry all the time. And another point that the video from Making Media Matter makes, she points out that the movie is heavily focused on the toxic masculinity of the idea of not showing emotion as a man, as men not being able to show emotion, otherwise they're perceived as weak and they're not taken seriously. Obviously, that is not the case. Emotions don't make someone less of a human. In fact, they make us more human. It's so hard to watch this movie and not break down at the end with Kevin. It also connects us with Kevin, and we see him continue to push it down and to push it down to avoid feeling it, when deep down we all know exactly what he's feeling. I'm not sure how often I will watch this movie. I've now seen it twice, and after the rewatch, my wife Sydney actually pointed out that the rewatchability of this movie is quite low, not because of its poor quality, in fact, quite the opposite. It's very well made, but it's just that heavy. This is not the kind of movie I want to be watching all the time, because then I would just be sad thinking about the story throughout my day, every week. I think the acting was stellar. I think maybe a couple of side characters that show up in the movie weren't my favorite acting-wise, but I think all of the main Von Erich family knocks it out of the park here, and especially from Zac Efron, who my wife and I both feel that he was definitely snubbed as at least a nomination for Best Actor at the Oscars the year that this came out. I'm noticing a theme with movies that are written and directed by the same people. The theme being that I usually end up absolutely adoring those kinds of movies. When you have one person with these ideas in mind, there's less clutter. There's more of a clear vision. There's not a team of writers battling with one director, and there's not one director trying to persuade a team of writers to write one thing on the paper, when the writers might want to write a whole different thing. Films like this, Jojo Rabbit, written and directed both by Taika Waititi. I think most Wes Anderson films are written and directed by himself, and where I think those movies stand out the most is in the characters. While none of those movies have a plot that falls apart for the most part, but I think the character work is what makes these movies shine. And when you get actors like you have in this film to coincide with that character work, with the writing, then it creates something absolutely spectacular. While not a perfect movie, the intention was to make the pacing quick. I do think this movie could have been maybe another 20 minutes longer, and I feel like it would be better for it, perhaps. Maybe branch out Doris's character a little bit more. And again, a couple side character actors that just aren't my favorite or that left me underwhelmed. Other than that, I would say this is a pretty dang good movie. And we're going to go ahead and give this movie a final rating of 8.5 out of 10. I would definitely recommend this movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. If you've watched it, I understand if you don't want to watch it again, but if you're interested in watching it again with my insight, then I do recommend going to watch it again with my insight in mind, and also go into it with the intention of getting your own insight and your own opinion on what you think worked and what you think didn't. That's going to do it for this episode of Nick's Mix and Flicks. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This was quite the episode. We started off with Thriller by Michael Jackson. and me repeatedly doing a pretty terrible Michael Jackson impression to discussing the story of a family that had to go through tragedy after tragedy, which led to the deaths of 5 of their 6 sons, and it is the farthest thing from a happy ending as you can get. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow the podcast on Spotify at Nick's Mix and Flicks, on YouTube at Nick's Mix and Flicks, YT, all one word. Comment, like, follow, subscribe, whatever the platform you're on prompts you to do. I appreciate it much, and it helps out a ton. Let me know what albums or movies you'd like to hear reviewed in the future, or any other fun ideas you think might make for a good bonus episode. I have some stuff in mind, so get excited, you guys. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.